Right. So, pumpkins. Are pumpkins a light source? Let's just hop up from here. Do pumpkins emit light? And for the early game, what are good options to jump in and quickly get a light source? What is your preference, Mr. Micro? So how about if we go indoors? Let's quickly go in here through the
I think you
charity
know what I'm
door.
gonna say.
Yes.
My go-to for early game lighting is definitely the Chinese lantern.
Alright. So I'll make it nighttime. Turn it on if you can. And we can see how well that does. So, it's a nice decorative item from Chinese New Year. It's been reintroduced like 3 times already. I think it came out first in 2019. And pretty much every Chinese New Year, they just reintroduce it again and again and again and again. But throughout the year, every year, it always rises up in price. People love the Chinese lanterns. They are actually a very good item to do a buy order on because eventually, throughout the year, towards, well, post Christmas time, last year they were selling for about $5 a piece. And how much did they sell for in the rush store? $2.49, something like that, $2. I don't remember fully, but yeah, just this by itself, causing all of this light. Yes, some of it glows, and yes, one of these pumpkins is on. So let's just turn that off. Right. Oh, actually, this one is as well. Okay, and this one. Right. But yeah, as you can see, all the light in this room is purely from this, and that uses low-grade fuel, if I'm correct. Yep. And the alternate option we have is the, well, what's this over here? A tuna can lamp shade? What's it called properly?
Yeah, tuna can lamp.
So, why do you prefer the lantern over the tuna can?
Well, a lot of it, I guess, depends on the layout of the base. You know what deployables you have set up, but the Chinese lantern emits light from, they both emit light from their location, and the Chinese lantern is something you could put on the ceiling versus the tuna can lamp, which goes on the wall. So, depending on the layout of your base, you may get better light from a Chinese lantern compared to a tuna can lamp, especially in like a cramped little like 1x2 or something. Early game, the Chinese lantern has worked much better for me.
In terms of resources, what does it cost to make a lantern? What does it cost to make a tuna can?
The Chinese lantern costs low grade and cloth versus a tuna can lamp, which relies on having a tuna can, an empty tuna can, and some wood.
Are they
And
not?
also low grade.
Oh, so they're not easy to come by, are they?
No, yeah, it's you can buy tuna, but or well, there's lots of ways. There's multiple ways to get tuna can lamps, but you cannot make a tuna can lamp without a tuna can, versus a Chinese lantern, which you could make simply with just cloth and low grade.
So there was a little tip that you mentioned to me earlier, and it's what happens when this happens. Right. Where's the
This is
switch?
a little trick.
Where's
A
the
little
switch?
trick that I like to use. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone else doing this, but it solves two problems at the same time.
So I'll make
First
it
of all,
daytime just so you can see. You have a
yeah,
little tip to help people coordinate themselves around to be able to find the tuna can even when you don't have the light on, because there's going to be some instances where you have to turn it off, or you've just got back to your base and it's night time and you're not going to be able to see where it is. I mean, of course, we do have these glowing doors. You know, in a more regular base, you're not going to have stuff like this, are you? But what is something you can do to help coordinate yourself a whole lot better?
well, a lot of times when you're out farming, looting crates and barrels, running down the road, hitting barrels, you're getting electrical components. And a lot of people will get electrical components and stick them in a box somewhere. What I like to do is just put them on the wall because they don't use any box space. But you can even make that even more, gain even more utility out of that. Some electrical components emit a glow even when they're not powered.
So this has no
So
electricity powering it. It's got no fuel. You literally just put it there, and when I make it nighttime, where's the tuna can? Oh, there it is. There we go. Easy. Why? Because it glows in the dark. I was quite like impressed with that. I know it's such a small thing, but for many people, something like that could be very helpful, especially in the early game. So good job there, Mr. Micro. But yeah, these are components and pieces that you always find in like outside in just random boxes and barrels and whatnot. Very easy to come by. But the main question, good sir, do pumpkins actually emit light? Are they a light source? So what do we have here? We have a carvable pumpkin with my symbol, a carvable pumpkin with your symbol, and a carvable pumpkin that is completely carved. And then we have the old, I guess you could say vintage pumpkin items that were released a good few years ago that haven't been brought back for a long time. So, Mr. Micro, let's make it nighttime and turn all of these on. Or actually, first of all, let's turn on the carvable pumpkin. That's the tool shed. Tool cupboard. So, these are actually emitting a light source, but it's incredibly weak. I can see my toes. Ooh. But yeah.
There's that foot fixation again.
Let's not talk about that. So, even when we have the full carving, you can see that it emits light, but it's not emitting more light. It has like a very small cone of light that it will emit. But technically speaking, yes, these are light sources, just not very strong ones. Now let's compare that to the other pumpkins, the ones that originally came out a good few years ago. Right. They have a much wider cone. Now, to see them, it's probably a fair bit better. And over here, yeah. So even though this one's bigger, still has the same cone of vision. These are much better light sources compared to the carvable pumpkin. But, you know, in terms of decoration, you can be a whole lot more creative with these ones. But yeah, some people were asking me, are these like good light sources and whatnot? Truthfully speaking, you're just probably better off using a tuna can or a lantern. These are much better off as your early game light sources. And a fireplace, of course. But aren't there some instances where people can see through your walls because of the lighting?
Yeah, and that's a great comment from the chat there. There's actually 2 points that tie together there. People do report that they can see certain light sources through the wall better or easier than others, and that is true. And also, there's a setting in the options menu that if you disable it, and I think it's shadow cascades, maybe shadow quality, or maybe it's max shadow lights. It's one of the three. I don't personally use it, but if you turn that all the way down, you can basically light your entire base with just one campfire, and the light isn't really obstructed by walls. Basically, the game engine treats it like, you know, it just spreads through objects easier. From outside the base, if you so for example, if you were up to no good and you were out on the prowl, you could turn that setting all the way down so you can now see the most that you can see with a light source and go walk around and see who's online, you know, who's in their base right now.
I was
going
to
say,
say,
light sources active,
Micro,
the entire base will be lit up, even the outside.
Isn't that an exploit?
I mean, it's a setting in the menu in the game. If you hit escape and go to graphics options, you know, I don't think any adjustment of those controls could be considered an exploit.
Well, that's what I wanted to hear. Like, it's probably less than favourable if you did something like that. Like people who set up the gamma to be able to see at night in the dark, you know, it's cheap. You know, you're only manipulating the game to work in your favour, whereas everybody else is playing at the regular level. I wouldn't like support the idea of like messing around with the settings to be able to do that. There's probably a lot of try-hard people that would, but maybe just stick with the lanterns and the coffee can, tuna cans. We don't have coffee cans. It's depressing. We don't have coffee in the island, Micro. I'm very depressed.
You know, they should. There's so many things that are just natural additions to the game. A coffee can lamp, make it a bigger lit up area. We have wolf headdresses. Where's the bear headdress? Come on, face punch.
Bear headdress. Actually, no, that would be really cool. But again, we already talked about that wolf, wolf thing in the workshop. I think people might probably be making too many skins for animals. Just pointing that out. Maybe we should avoid that. Okay. Pumpkins, probably not the best light source. But these two, I mean, it's down to your personal preference. This is probably easier to make because it only requires cloth. But this you can attach to the wall. This you can attach to the ceiling. I'd say this is probably best overall as a mini base decoration and whatnot. But of course, you got to spend money to buy it. Ooh, and they cost like two. What? Go on.
There is another thing I could mention. I think I mentioned this maybe last stream too. There is another sort of mechanic, if you will, or you might call it an exploit, or maybe it's just using the math of the crafting to your advantage.
Go on.
But if you craft a Chinese lantern,
yes,
and then take it and recycle it, you get back the low grade that it costs to make one. But what happens is when you craft one, let's say it costs 5 low grade to craft.
Yeah.
You craft the lantern and then it's full of 5 low grade as soon as you craft it. So you take the low grade out and recycle it and get a fraction of the low grade back. I think you get 3 back.
So you can make infinite low grade.
Yeah. I mean, you do consume cloth because you don't get the cloth back when you recycle it. You get some of it. So
what would be more better to have? Low grade. So I didn't know about that. Is that another sneaky micro tip?
Yeah, it's a sneaky micro tip. You could say that. It's not like one of those game-changing things that's going to give you a leg up, but when you're hard up for low grade early game, that's one way to go about
trading
out another like 10 low grade to make your first furnace or something.
Trading out one resource for another. Now, again, early game stuff. You're going to be in a situation like that where that's going to be very helpful. That's actually very, very interesting, and that's actually quite helpful, that is. Good job, Mr. Micro.
It's a niche application, it's a little edge case kind of thing, but 25 cloth to make it,
and you could easily get that.
It could, yeah, I mean, it's not that hard. Sometimes if you go you could go buy a sewing kit or find some rope and recycle it. It's easy to get cloth sometimes, much easier than it can be to get low grade.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's only in the case where you're finding low grade hard to get. Sometimes it's easy to get. Like right now, I hear animals outside. We could go skin that pig or deer or whatever that is.
Calm down, Mr. American. All right,
Well, I mean, that's how the game works, my friend.
Yeah.
Got to get the low grade somehow.
But again,
the alternative is you're looking kind of, juicy. I could chop you up and harvest your animal fat.
Well, I guess that's a good time to end the video. So thank you very much, Mr. Micro. Please don't kill me, and I'm out of here. Goodbye. Hey.